Welcome to this meeting devoted to the BolognaRagazzi Award winner for Opera Prima. I'm delighted of being here with our guests, one from Moscow, Kasia Denisevich, author of the wonderful Neighbors, published by Chronicle Books in 2020. And for Chronicle Books, I welcome Naomi Kirsten, editor of the Chronicle Publishing House. So welcome. Thank you for being with us for the Bologna Children's Book Fair online edition. I present myself. I'm Marcella Terrusi. I work at the University of Bologna, and I have the pleasure of working also as a consultant for Bologna Children's Book Fair. So in charge for this wonderful meeting. I have to say I have the books in my hands. The books is not only beautiful and lovely, but being an opera prima is also a sign of how brave and also how a publisher can have vision about a young artist. This award for us means a lot because it was established in memory of the first graphic designer of Bologna Children's Book Fair, Giovanni Lanzi, and for us it means a way to underline how important is the faith and the brave of the publishers that wants to welcome and to encourage new authors. Being that such an incredible book, it would be something even if it was not an opera prima, but in fact it is a debut. So I have to say I am delighted of having here the author and the editor to discuss about the book, and we will have a little journey through its pages. But that's the first thing I would like to congratulate and to read the motivation that the international jury gave for this award. So Neighbors, text and illustrations by Kasia Denisevich, Chronicle Books, United States of America, 2020. How is real respect cultivated? This stunning, thoughtful, and necessary book considers how it often takes a child's reflection to show us. Neighbors shows the tensions, moments of compassion, hesitation, and sincere curiosity about the other that come with having neighbors. The pandemic has made the use of a building as a metaphor for the world, and an appropriate one to bridge the gulf of ideas of differences between people who live in close physical proximity. The book uses black ink in a novel way to conjure thoughtfulness rather than darkness, and its gradations allow for light to come through. The artfulness of the book involves the use of symmetry, symbols, and fantastic elements that are produced in the child's imagination. These overturn the extreme realism of the city setting and remind the reader that utopian thinking is always possible. So congratulations for this incredible book and wonderful achievement. I would like to introduce our guest with a few notes, because I have to say that is not the first time that Chronicle Books receive an award, the BolognaRagazzi Award. We know very well your books, there's a long friendship among Bologna Children's Book Fair and Chronicle Books, and we are delighted of having you also for this category this year. And I would like to mention something about Kasia. I'm reading from your website. I'm not that good in knowing that all that from before, but I have to say that we met before because in 2017 you were selected for the Illustrators exhibition in Bologna, which is for us something really important, because this means that we are all working as a community of children's publishing in the same direction, and we are noticing the same talent, and we are encouraging the same gifted artists. So for us, this is really a great pleasure to see you again, to meet you again. I see that Kasia Denisevich is born in Russia, in Moscow. She's in fact connected with us from Moscow today. You, Kasia Denisevich, studied comparative literature at Russian State University for the humanities. And this is interesting because she spent years in an academic career and also translating books. And then you have change because you moved to Barcelona and you start studying illustration, so at the Scuola Massana in Barcelona, and then at the Mi Master in Milan. And also Mi Master is a great friend of Bologna Children's Book Fair. So the book, your your book of debut is Neighbors. Even if, as I was saying, it looks really like a mature book, it shows an incredible balance between text and illustrations. And in illustrations, as in text, it has, I would call it like a poetical depth. There are layers of significances and of references on the side of the visual, which is super interesting and I would say also sophisticated in different choices, and also as the text, which is synthetical, poetic, and has a deep sense, a deep meaning. I would say that it is, yes, a metaphor, but it is also talking about something usual, something that every day we experience in a new way. So this is what artists do. They take the dust out of our everyday objects and let us see with new eyes. And so I want to congratulate for this debut, and I would start asking, probably asking to you, yes, directly, Kasia, if you want to tell us as a first thing, how do you receive this award? How do you feel about that? And what were your expectations of the book? Because as a debut, I imagine there are many, many feelings in it, much work, and also expectations normally, right? So I would like to hear from your voice. How is it going, this great adventure of Neighbors?
Hello, Marcella. Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be in this meeting, and this award means the world to me, and it's something, well, expected in a way. I mean, very wanted, very desired, but of course, a great surprise. And I still have mixed feelings about this. Like, I still think that there's been some kind of a mistake or something that is going to be discovered soon. But it is a very special prize to me, of course, because I've always been very keen of Bologna. And I can say that practically this book started with the illustrators exhibition 4 years ago.
This is fantastic.
Yes, when suddenly a series of 5 illustrations were selected for the illustrators exhibition. And that was the first, when I went to Bologna, I suddenly thought, well, I could really write a book about this. And this is how I thought of the story around the series of 5 images, and started looking for a publisher. And my second huge fortune is meeting Naomi, and a publisher who would believe in such a, well, in a way, a very difficult book. I understand how difficult it is for a children's market, because it's mostly black and white, and it's philosophical. A lot of people don't really believe in philosophy and poetry for kids, and don't believe in books that talk mostly with images. And my text is very short. And Naomi had a great vision and believed in me from the very moment we met. This is true, and it is my greatest fortune, I would say. And also the agent, Debbie Biba, who was very important for this book too.
I have a question. Did you meet in Bologna? Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. I have just this curiosity.
We met at the master.
You met where? Sorry.
No, but at Mi Master in Milan.
I see. Okay, great. This is fantastic.
Yes. And there's another funny thing about this book, that practically I delivered the last images, and the book went to print practically before the whole COVID thing and before the pandemic and before the situation that revealed new layers in this book in a way, and I didn't really expect it to sound to be that sharp in a way. But really, it has something to do with living with people who are so close to you that you could practically touch them if you could stretch your hand through a wall. And being close, with some people we even live in the same apartment but never reach them really. We can be we can see people every day and not reach them. That's another thing that is not inside the book, but it's kind of a thing to think about again and again. And the sense of community, of course, is another thing that, changed during the pandemic, right? Because our communities were large in a way. And then at some point we were forced to only talk to your neighbors who are physically reachable every day. So yes, we are all neighbors in a way, but and maybe it's a nice idea to look at everybody around as your neighbor.
This is very beautiful also to listen how you talk about that. And seeing, going through the pages, there are many elements that I would like them to go back and discuss with you. And, it happened something this year that if you will look, maybe you already did, but the list of the BolognaRagazzi awarded books of this year, there is like a beeline. There is the theme of the home. It's so present. And the BolognaRagazzi Award for Fiction went to a book titled Home, and the New Horizons went to a book titled Mesto, that means city, and the opera Prima goes to you, Neighbors. So it's like this theme, even if some of this book, like yours, were produced and created before the pandemic, it's like this book had really something to tell us that now become necessary, become so crucial, so important for us. And so the theme, yes, is huge. It's proximity, physical proximity, is distance, is the other, no? The idea of others. I want to underline how you said that the book is difficult, and we will go also back to it. I want to say that from a visual point of view, what I see is a really sophisticated use of images and of the page. I would say every page is very different from the other, and at one moment in the book, you just let the voice be silent. I am a scholar in Wörter's books, and I'm very interested always in seeing how the ellipsis of the text is made. And you did something that was, for example, in Maurice Sendak, Where the Wild Things Are, just making the text reluctant or silent in one moment because it needs to be that, and then taking it back, and which is very, very interesting for me. And always talking about the composition in the page, we see, for example, in this page, this use also of symmetry, and it remembers me of some movies, by Wes Anderson, and when you see also this transparency of the house, and transparency is a very ancient strategy in visual communication for children also, no? And so it is a way to see how things are in the inside. So you just cut it and you see what's going on. It's also a philosophical strategy, as you said. So I would like to go back to you, to your voice, of course, and thank you for the contribution you already gave. But I would like to ask to Naomi Kirsten, as an editor, how did you How did you receive, and what did you see in this work? And when did you meet Cassia's work, and how? It would be very interesting for our audience and also for new artists that are starting their career now.
Thank you. I firstly just have to commend you for your understanding of what Cassia has achieved. You fully understand this book. I get goosebumps when you describe it. You understand all of the layers. And so for me, when I'm acquiring books, I'm very oriented outward. So of course, if I see a book from an American author illustrated, I'm interested if it's compelling, but I'm even more compelled, honestly, when I see books from international talent, because from what I've discovered over the years of publishing international artists and authors is they're not afraid of the philosophical, they're not afraid of the depth, they're not afraid of even using, black and white or what might be perceived in America as dark colors or illustrations. No, because they know kids want to engage the world in that way. Children are hungry to broaden their understanding of not just the day-to-day, but of big emotions, of life. I mean, they see their parents are adults. So the adult world is really all around them all the time. Just as in Cassia's book, in Neighbors, it says, my neighbors are all around me. Well, there are kids, but there are also adults. So when I'm looking at art, when I'm looking at new projects, I want that layer of depth. I want that layer of the adult world to come through, because I want to be able to show children, there's more than, your colorful toys. That's important, but you will grow into that world and you need to be equipped to deal with that. You need to start engaging it, and to have, authors and illustrators like Cassia hold your hand and guide you into it like a guide. So I was teaching at Me Master in February 2018. I was so honored to be invited there. And we had a day of portfolio review. So I was, I had met Cassia in the class and I could tell she was very talented, but it was really at that moment I sat down and it was Debbie Bebo, who is an agent based in Milan that I work with so much. And she and I were reviewing portfolios. And I have to say, Cassia presented her early sketches for the book. And I just went, and in fact, Debbie had to say, Naomi, use a poker face, because, you want to still, be professional.
Be strategical.
Okay, great. But I was like, I need to buy this right now. And it was immediate. It wasn't, I don't know, maybe I knew immediately this was something we had to publish. And if I didn't acquire it, somebody else would. This was, to me, a perfect book. This was doing everything. It had the pathos, the emotion. It had, again, the layers, the intelligence, the sophistication, and the voice. I mean, again, you keep saying the sophistication. It's Cassia's first book, but it's as if she's been illustrating and making books for decades. It's really something, and I hope Cassia talks about how long she's been illustrating. I mean, it's really, I don't think, very long at all. And the fact that she's mastered the perfect picture book in my opinion. And of course, thankfully, the BolognaRagazzi and the Upper Prima judges jury realized that. But I also just want to say, again, this was pre-COVID. We had no idea any of this was going to happen. But the reason it resonated with me, and I think with the jury and with readers, is that it's about connection, and it's about the desire to connect and what keeps us apart, and how do we bridge that. And what I love is and what gives me just chills is thinking about this character Cassia created, who lives in an apartment building. She's not in a single family home. We don't know anything about her socioeconomic status, but she lives with all these other people. And she's not stressing, oh, my room is too small. It's, I want to know who lives around me. That's her first and reigning and guiding question. And through that questioning is the beauty of the book, and is the openness and the existentialism. And you know, the questioning of, and the wondering about the building, and about even her own sense of imagination. So the world gets bigger and bigger, even though she's in an apartment. Her world is huge. And to me, that is so powerful, that her desire to know others, her desire to want to know details about others and about the texture of their lives is the very thing that makes her life interesting. So it's a dialogue, and Cassia captures that. And what an incredible, powerful message to send to young readers and to parents and to adults. So that came through immediately. I love Cassia's use of color, the red, and that how she builds that through. And again, it's not dark at all. It's superficially dark. You know, you look at the black and white, but no, to me, what she's achieved through this very limited palette is actually a very vibrant book in she allows the themes and the power of the voice to kind of counterbalance that art. I'd love to have Cassia describe how music plays a role here. There's a musicality to what she's achieved. And I know music is a huge part, and you'll see the musical imagery if you look at the details, but it's almost like a symphony, you know, when you have crescendos in some of the illustrations, and then you have quiet, and then, you know, it's very lyrical in that way. So again, to me, the consummate, like, perfect picture book. And we don't see this very often. So just to meet a student at Me Master and to see her portfolio and see this project that, again, the Bologna jury with the illustrators recognized in 2017, the work she had done just, you know, in a few months, showing it to an editor, showing it to an agent, and we immediately knew this had to be a book. Again, that speaks to the community of children's publishing, that speaks to the community that Bologna Children's Book Fair facilitates and cultivates. And that I got to be a part of that, you know, that February, and that Cassia and I got to meet there and talk about the book. So yeah, that's just a kind of long-winded way. I will also say I came back to Chronicle and I said, we have to publish this. When I presented this, I explained all of these things and how important it was to elevate and celebrate voices that are international, voices that are different from the voices we often see again and again in America. So that is a huge part of what I'm committed to, and that Chronicle has been committed to for many, many years. We've always wanted to bring in new voices. So I am just, again, so honored that Cassia is on our list, that Bologna has recognized this book, that I do believe will be a classic, a contemporary classic for children for many, many years to come.
It's beautiful what you say, and you also introduce different elements that are so interesting to read the book in one or more and more layers, as we said. It happens. There are very cultivated references. I have to say, it's very beautiful always to go in the backstage of the book and see that it's a collective work. Picture book, it is a collective work of art, and so the meeting between the talent of an artist and the talent of an editor is what makes a book come true, be a book, so reach its readers. So it's very beautiful to hear about all the work that brought this book in my hands and in other readers' hands. And I have to say that going through the pages, yes, there is an element I would like to ask you a little bit more about. And Naomi was talking about that, and which is the color, because we have a black and white in which there is just one color, so like monochromatic choice that is definitely a language choice, content choice, narrative choice. And so there is, in this crescendo, as you said very beautifully, Naomi, there is an element that comes and adds its power to the first. Well, first of all, the first color that is there, apart from black and white, is red. So is the more symbolic color in the children's literature history, and there is a moment in which the child reminds us of Little Red Riding Hoods. Of course, it's a very academic comment, but I cannot but do it because, of course, for us, when you see a child like that, she has all that children in the woods behind her, and then the meeting with the other girl takes a new color in the palette of her life. This is not only beautiful and very effective in itself, but is beautifully made in a very balanced way. And it is also very cultivated and high references. Of course, to me, it comes, of course, the memory of Leo Leoni, no, in Little Blue, Little Yellow. It is different. Yes, it is different, of course, because this is a very original work of art. But for example, in the end papers, I saw a memory of it, a memory of as a first thing, of the role that end paper has in picture book, so welcoming and saying also goodbye. And as a second thing, a geometric pattern that becomes so strongly narrative. And I think you showed that you could create, I think, picture books. I look forward to your next books in many different visual languages. They're very realistic, great composition, great use of colors, and also very geometrical, I would say abstract. And I would like to ask you about this, the use of color, which research you made on that, which reflections you've made on that. And also I would like to ask you, which are your more beloved references in children's illustration, or probably in the history of art, I guess.
Thank you, Marcella. You really thought of most of the reference that I was thinking about. Like Leo Leoni, of course, is one of my favorite artists, and I always, well, he is a reference for everybody. I think this is not a surprise. As for the use of color, about black and white in illustration, I would say that I have this feeling more than an idea that color is very emotional, and black and white is more like meditative. It slows down a little bit the pace of the narrative and makes you think a little bit more. It's very expressive, but like slower, I would say, not that fast. And I love the scarce use of color in art and in books everywhere. And as a reference, I would say, I have a favorite movie, one of my favorite movies by Chris Marker called Sans Soleil. And it's mostly made of photos. And there is only 3 or 4 seconds of video in this movie. It's quite long. It's all made of photos, and only 3 or 4 seconds of real video. And at this point, when you've been looking at photos for like 15 minutes, when you suddenly see a video, you understand how powerful it is, how really alive a video is, And this is what I try to create with colors. So to use as little colors as possible so that it would be obvious how emotional they are. Why red? I wouldn't have an answer. I think I just like the color, and it's a classical combination of black and white and red. And as for the yellow, I was thinking about the light, and the most important part, the culmination of the book happens at dawn, more or less, at the morning, in the morning, when the girl meets her neighbor. And I thought of the colors of the dawn, and it's red and yellow. So I thought that would melt together in dawn, at dawn. And this is why I thought that the neighbor would be represented with yellow. And also, the beginning of the school year, for example, in my childhood in Moscow, was always in September, and September is always gold because all the trees go yellow. Well, this was my thinking, I think. And as for the last spread, which is more colorful and has the blue sky and a lot of kids of different colors, this is the example of how important an editor is in the book, because it was Naomi's idea. I'm almost sure now that it was her idea to zoom out of the you know, of the house, of the street, of the little life, and to see the big world with lots of colors. So this is all Naomi's fault.
Well, maybe we should talk about that for a moment. What your original spread, Kastia's original spread, was lovely. She had the neighbors, the two girls, walking into the school, but we were kind of at their it was at the level, you know, they were walking into the gate, so there wasn't a perspective overhead. And I loved that message of, okay, well, now we're going to enter the school, and it was still the same text, but I thought, well, what if we, as Kassia is saying, we really reinforce that notion of your world gets bigger when you are curious. The more questions you ask about other people, the more love you have for other people, the more interest you have in other people, the more colorful it gets, the more vibrant it gets. So here we have the two girls connecting, and that connection leads to only more curiosity and the desire to connect even more. So then we show children, look at this, now she has school. And for so many children, school can be a source of anxiety, a source of, like, you know, feeling overwhelmed with, so many kids. Well, no, what if it's that same basic question of, what are they like? How might that enrich my sense of myself and my connection to other people? So Kassia and I really worked together, and she just created this beautiful, again, final spread that brings chills when I look at it, because she's outside her house and things are only bigger and brighter, and you feel that bustle, you can almost hear the children playing in the distance. So again, working with that gutter, and if you go back through the book, you'll see her gorgeous use of the gutter, the center page, where we're constantly bridging it, we're constantly in a conversation with it, right? If you go back a little bit, Marcella, you'll see she wonders, the girl is just on the other side of the wall. The gutter is there dividing them, but it's also connecting them. And so we see them traversing it, going back and forth. And at the end, yet again, we have that gutter, and they will cross it and be together. And I just want to add a little bit to Kassia's red. What I love about her use of red symbolically, to me, it really signifies heart. It signifies love. It signifies warmth. And it definitely looks gorgeous with the black and the white. But to me, so much of the message of the book is lead with your heart. Let your heart guide you in your curiosity. Don't cut that off. That is the key to so much. And what you'll see here, what we worked on with the end papers, which are just gorgeous, is it's tile, it's a floor. We step on it, it's dirty. But how gorgeous are her end papers? I mean, to me, what we really wanted to do was to kind of reconfigure your sense of something that might be not appropriate for a picture book, right? Like where you put your feet. No, this is the foundation for this building. And we have the red symbolizing the narrator. And she seems, it's guiding color. And then at the end, we add the colors to this dirty floor, which isn't dirty at all. It's actually quite beautiful. It's cracked. It symbolizes all the many different personalities and people. No one's perfect. But there's beauty in imperfection, right? And like you're saying, Marcella, there is a symmetry, because there's a symphony and symmetry in everybody kind of in this dance of life, as long as we all connect, as long as we all facilitate that curiosity and conversation. So even from those end papers, Kassia is conveying that. And again, to me, that red is just so heart-filled, heart-forward. And that is the guide. So I would hope on some level, one feels that reading it, right? That's your anchor in a way, that love, that heart. and it's almost like the heart of the building is the people, is the life. So yeah, Cassia, again, every time I go into that book, I just discover more and more details that are just, I can read it. I've read it 100 times and I could read it forever, and I will love every detail. And the emotion, again, as you're speaking about it, I am emotion. I get emotional because it is such a moving book that just gets into your cells in just such an incredible way. It's almost like it transcends words, right? Because your visual language is so powerful.
Well, the
Thank you
red
very
is
much, Naomi.
yes, it's beautiful, and the red, it's the alchemic guide color, so it's not recurring in children's illustration and in art with this strong power that never ends. And I have to say that also the theme of questions that you mentioned and you explained very well, it is an amazing text, because the synthesis, the ellipsis that you could do on that just leave the power of questions, being very open but being very authentic, because children, they have questions, and artists, they have questions, and they share the same type of displacement. And so this way of being so direct, because the text is straight, I would say direct, no synthetical, just leave the space to the story and to the reader. And there is also another dynamic that I would like to underline, that is the dynamic between the very little and the very big, which is a theme not only in Eastern philosophy. We know the figure of mandala, for example, being in Sanskrit it means community, and it means something that recalls the universe, the big in the small scale. No, I also like very much the expression in English that is the big picture, because the opposite of big picture is the small picture, right? Is the detail, I would say. And in your work there is this type of breadth between the two dimensions of the very big and universal and the very small and detail, which is so present in, I would say, the best work in children's literature and in picture books. The sensibility that it really belongs to the discourse, the cultural discourse about childhood. First of all, because we are grown-ups talking about children and we wonder what they see, but we are retelling their stories, we are retelling their universe. And here there is also a dynamic between visible and invisible, because on the other side of the wall, and you said it beautifully before, you can reach someone, it's very close, but you can also never see them. You can also never know them. Yes, the pandemic took us, kept us home, and forced us to look as small children. We were talking before about our little children, Naomi. They start to explore the world starting from here and now, and then they go step by step. But this is also a philosophical posture, and this is something that art can encourage, and this is something very important for education. You also mentioned before meditation, no? This dimension of being capable of staying in the empty or in the full with the same presence. I think this book has really a great power of taking the reader into this experience, not talking about this experience, but taking you in this dimension and experience. Normally I don't comment so long. I'm sorry if I'm speaking too much, but it's just like I like very much sharing it with you and with our audience as if we were at the Illustrators Cafe, where normally we are holding this type of meeting. But I would like to ask you another question, Naomi, that is, did you already sell the rights for the book in some countries, or can you tell us where?
Yeah, so far France and Korea, but yeah, I anticipate much interest especially in light of this award. So yeah, we are starting to sell rights. I would definitely say if you're interested, write to our foreign rights team at Chronicle Books. But yeah, this book, in Russia, of course, we have a beautiful Russian edition as well.
Spain.
And Spain, yes. So I'm sorry,
China.
and China. So many foreign editions. Sorry, thank you, I have so many books and deal memos, and but yes. So China, Korea, Russia, France, and Spain. So that's considered a real success. But there's still some territories, of course, that I would love to see, where I would love to see this book. I think, again, it is transcendent. It doesn't speak to one place. It speaks to so many places. But I do want to quickly say something, because again, Marcella, you bring up so many wonderful things. You talk about going small to big. This book asks a question right around the middle. What if there is nothing at all beyond the walls of my room? Now, that can be a terrifying question. That can be an absolutely terrifying question to some people, not even kids, to some people. But Kassia makes you stay with that. Talk about meditative, talk about Zen, talk about really just being. And then you turn the page and it's just the two neighbors side by side sleeping, total peace. But what if there was nothing? That question that can terrify somebody because there is no anchor. Maybe there is no true anchor. But Kassia allows us to kind of stay with an uncomfortable question that can also be a beautiful question. To me, that is the spread I want to frame and put on my wall. That existential kind of terrifying question. And again, because it's not. It's the universe. We are made of stars, right? We are all made of the same elements. And we are connected to the universe, to space, to what is so far beyond. But she takes us so big from so small, from a bedroom unpacking. And to me, I've never seen that in a picture book. That is such a feat, right? So I love that. I love that that's a moment that can stop anyone in their tracks, from a 5-year-old to a 90-year-old, right? And we talk about picture books teaching us how to live, how to be, how to negotiate difficult feelings. Well, Neighbors does that, on so many levels. And to me, that spread really encapsulates that kind of sense of big and can I be with this really big kind of question and concept? And yes, you can. And she takes us through that. Right? Kassia as the author, illustrator, and the narrator who's a child. So on all levels, it's just such a triumph and a feat and a gift, really, that she's given us to be able to sit with that feeling and that question, and to ultimately be okay with it, right? Like some people take years to be able to kind of deal with that. And, hey, it's okay if there's nothing else. If there's nothing else beyond this, right? It's okay, right? So that to me is...
We could say that if you wonder about that, you can discover what it is on the other side. If you don't question, you'll never know. So it's really a door opening to the exploration, and also a tribute to the child's imagination and philosophy, I would say. So going to our close, I want to thank you, of course. I look forward the Italian edition of it, of course, and we look forward your new books. So new books from Kassia Denisovich, new books from Chronicle Books, and from Naomi Kirsten as a great editor and talent scout, I would say. And I really thank you for this time with me and with us of the Bologna Children's Book Fair. Of course, we look forward meeting you in person in 2022, and we'll be already friends because we met in the pages of this beautiful, beautiful book. So with my congratulations, I thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marcella. Thank you, Naomi.